Hi, I'm Richard, and I'm here to talk about my experience with September 11, 2001. At the time, I was living in East Harlem, New York, also known as Spanish Harlem, in the northeastern part of the island of Manhattan. It was Tuesday morning, just like today, and just like today, it was sunny skies, clear skies. I was waking up to watch TV, and the TV I had at the time was an old TV, so it had bunny ear antennas. It didn't have cable. Would turn the TV and there was static. I kept flipping through the channels until I barely was able to read the marquee on the bottom of the TV screen saying something referring to the World Trade Center. I go into the living room and I turn on that TV, which did have cable, and that's when I saw the two towers and the first plane hitting one of the towers. And I went to my grandmother's room and I woke her up and brought her out into the living room, and we were just watching everything unfold on television. The most of the phone calls were from New York were based on antennas that were on top of the World Trade Center. So when the planes hit, it disrupted phone service. I finally was able to get a hold of my mom, and I was on the phone with her the entire time when the second plane had hit and when the two buildings collapsed. It was a surreal experience for me to actually watch that and be in the city where it happened. All the while I was thinking of my one friend who had worked downtown. I was thinking, was he okay? I had no way of contacting him. Early that afternoon, around 1 o'clock, I decided to go outside, and the most amazing thing, well, I wouldn't say amazing, but it's New York City, and normally you see cars going up the street. You see yellow taxi cabs, gypsy cabs, MTA buses, delivery trucks, you name it. Busy streets, all go with cars going up and down the streets. The street was practically empty, and the only thing I saw were people walking from the general downtown direction, walking uptown. I look up at the sky, and again, being New York City, you usually see planes flying around. But there were no planes that afternoon. It was quite surreal. That whole day, it was just a lot of thoughts racing through my head. You know, what happens now? And I was still worried about my friend. Fortunately, my friend was able to contact me, and he told me he was fine, and he was on one of the ferries heading towards New Jersey. so that was a little bit of a relief. But at the same time, I thought about all those people that were in the building. I mean, I didn't know them, but just to think about the ordeal that they went through, it was unbelievable. I don't know how I managed to do this, but around midnight, I fell asleep. And again, with everything that just happened, I don't know how I was able to fall asleep. I mean, 11 years later, I still don't understand how I was able to sleep after seeing something like that. And the next morning, I wake up at the same time as I always do, and I had the same thoughts that I figured many people would have thought at that time, that this really happened. Oh, that was a bad dream. Until I turned on the TV and I knew that it was not a bad dream, that it actually happened, that everything that happened the day before did happen. It's amazing. 11 years later, I still remember all those details. But the one distinct detail that still haunts me to this day is the fact that the days and the weeks after September 11th, 2001, there was a smell. It was a wind that blew from the southern part of Manhattan where the World Trade Center was, and it blew up north. There are many things that people can remember in exact detail. There's one of the few things that I'll always remember the rest of my life is that smell. Smell of gasoline, burnt metal, and flesh. And 11 years later, that still haunts me. It still haunts me. In any event, that's my story. I figure I've never told it before in such magnitude, so I figured I'd tell it to everyone. By all means, feel free to pass this video along. It's especially dedicated to those who lost their lives, and for the men and women who protect this country. And for those who survived the ordeal, in my opinion, I feel we should never forget September 11th. I know I won't.